Which one of them? It's irrelevant. This situation now that we have has to be properly investigated, and and hopefully what it leads to, because I believe lots of these things are true. I don't care if the PVP or PNC. I know that people that are abroad are voting, and many of them. It is preventing the system from developing into a multi-ethnic political system, because these parties have been doing it as a culture for the longest while. You said, I spoke to the question of no confidence vote. You can't say, don't worry, no confidence vote. You should have gone after 90 days after the election. Why you would have gone after 90 days after the election when you know, and the other man knows, that he stopped trying to stop you from getting a house to house, from getting a proper list? Why would you want to do that? Why? Because that was a deliberate act. You can't say we got it was a legal act. You have to factor in the political. The political was that it was an act intended to do X. So when you say, how can you say the PVP? It's the PNC are saying of the PVP. What I'm saying, what they are going to argue with you is that look on the Lower East Coast. Look who benefits from it. What they are saying is true. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying these things. You just got to take them and go and factor them into some decision. I'm saying they need to be properly investigated. And I believe many of them will turn out to be true. And it will lead to a development of the political system that would stop this and allow the system to grow into a multi-ethnic system, more or less like Suriname, rather than a bi-communal society in which two people are fighting each other. But if you look at the situation in the Lower East Coast, who you think benefits? This is a matter of probability. That is what the Election Commission will have to use to determine how many of these votes were tainted by any kind of illegality. They'll have to do it, because that is what is necessary in human rights law. They will have to go and determine how many votes were tainted. That's why the PNC are throwing out these numbers. About 80,000 votes tainted by this process, because the Election Commission must go out there and do an investigation. And it is not that they are not organized to do it. They have any state agent. They're just an agent of the state. Just like how they call the police to give them security. What you want, they can't move without security. So you want the police to go and run the elections. They can call upon instruments of the state. This matter must be properly organized. It's not for political and for speculation. Whether or not these things happen, can be proven and must be proven satisfactorily to the satisfaction of the Commission and its chairman. That is all I am saying. They must be proven. And I'm not going to, you just can't throw them aside as I've seen this here and I've seen that there. Allegations are being made. Once they are being made, they must be properly investigated and the outcomes factored into the final decision, regardless of the preambling of what we may believe and we may think.
Okay, quickly, Mr. Amkren, if we have all of these speculations here now over what has transpired in the recount process, to what extent is it possible that GCOM may very well want to revert back to the already held declarations that have been held in abeyance?
Well, notwithstanding Henry's allegations about legal propaganda and all this kind of stuff, GCOM is constrained by two things. GCOM operates on instruments. The Constitution, which provides its broad powers, the Representation of the People's Act. GCOM is a statutory body created by law. It can't do anything that it wants to do. It can't do anything that Henry says it must do, or Henry's views are that it must do. It can only do what is provided for. And all this kind of stuff that Henry is saying is provided for nowhere in any law that I know of. I mean, how does GCOM determine? It's easy for GCOM to determine about the votes on the East Coast because the statements of polls is evident as to what were in those boxes. But how does GCOM determine that only 75,000 votes? I mean, that is what one says. What do you do about that allegation? Tell me what you can do about that allegation. With no evidence of proof. I mean, absolutely no evidence. In view of stuff like that, which you must ignore, it has to do what best it can within the laws that it operates by and come to a conclusion. GCOM has to come to a conclusion. That's his job. That's what's required to do.
Going forward now, Mr. Campbell, let's move the discussion forward as we go to program time. The prospects for a good governance model in Guyana, what do you think can be done by civil society, the political parties? We see Mr. Jagdeo and Mr. Dr. Ali already virtually ruling out executive power sharing. What can be done, in your view, Mr. Campbell, and on other panelists, to really persuade the political top brackets across the political divide to come up with a governance model that is acceptable in a racially polarized Guyana?
Dennis, and you would well know that I was involved in a call, likely anticipating the same situation. In fact, 1 week after the coalition got into power, I wrote them and I said, be well aware you may fall on a no confidence vote, and it did happen. But I recognize that we are not moving. The governance structure needed to be amended through constitutional reform, and there was not much appetite on the coalition. To my mind, it was the first thing the coalition should have done, and I believe Ralph and Henry and I have some agreement on this in terms of the new AFC manifesto had some reasonably good proposals for power sharing, but none of this was advanced. And the argument now becomes from the incoming party, well, you were in power, you didn't do it, why should we do it? And it's a rotating, it's a cyclical argument that comes up every time. Why you didn't do it when you had power? Why didn't you do it when you had power? And so you've rightly pointed to the civil society in terms of pressuring, because even though we've seen signals from Mr. Jagdeo that he intends to govern by reaching across the ethnic boundary, and I believe he had a comment about a week ago saying that the coalition did not take care of its supporters, and one could infer that one may infer from that once he gets into power, that he will probably try to reach out and to those coalition supporters. Just as an aside, I believe both parties, these close votes, have always been, the PPP has always been, listen, we'll look after our own supporters and we'll try to get the vote of of our First Peoples. The coalition is the same. We'll try to look after our supporters and try to get to the top on the vote of our First Peoples. Now, I'm not leaving the First Peoples out of this, but the way my mind works, if I were in that position, I'll try to get to the top by reaching across the boundary and getting to my coalition supporters. So, two things. One, I don't believe that there is any immediate appetite for power sharing. Two, I suspect that the PPP government will try reaching across boundaries to attract support, the typical supporter of a coalition government. That this is if the PPP were in power, were to gain power based on those preliminary numbers. I'm not jumping into saying who was one or who wasn't one. I will leave that to GCOM. But whichever government comes into power, and like Henry, I'm hoping it's some kind of power sharing that will take place. But I don't see the route to it in the short term. That civil society needs to step up and put pressure on these combatants for power sharing, if not at the executive level, for deeper power sharing. And the Constitution provides for it. And I'll give you one quick example because I know we're running on time, only 3 minutes left to go. The Constitution and legislation provides for regions to be funded according to a formula, and that has never been honored. So there are a number of things that we can put in place that can deepen our inclusion in our governance model. But we should push for some alternative mechanism, and that will have to come from civil society because the two parties have never shown any desire for it once they're in power.
Dr. Jeffrey's position on power sharing is well known, so I'll give way to Peter Wickham, who has worked across the Caribbean in many jurisdictions. Of course, they're largely of one race, descendants of Africans who were brought here as imported labor centuries ago. So they do not necessarily have the kind of race-based political situation as we have here in Guyana, to some extent Trinidad and Suriname. What are your thoughts on power sharing for a country like Guyana, Mr. Wickham?
The legal arguments explored by Henry and Terence are not unreasonable, and that's not really my area. My area is the politics of it, and I don't see it happening politically. You share power when you feel you absolutely have to, because we have a winner-take-all system for all intents and purposes, and you basically try to get all of the power because that's really what's on the table. The idea of compromise comes in a situation where you don't believe that you can get everything. So I believe that the APNU may very well be in a situation now where they may be willing to talk compromise because they feel that they're likely to lose everything. I don't see that it is in the PPP Civic's interest now to talk compromise because they seem set to win. So the political realities are such that I don't see it happening. And I mean, I've worked in Trinidad and Tobago as well, and what has happened in Trinidad and Tobago is a situation in which the Afros have more or less control of the East-West corridor, which essentially gives them control of the politics. And that's the reason why the PNM more often than not wins elections. What the COP and the UNC have done is that they've gotten into a kind of a power-sharing political compromise where the COP delivers enough people in the East-West corridor to be able to put them into office. And the East-West corridor is predominantly either Afros or mixed people, or alternatively in those that are enlightened enough to believe that they can be led by someone who is not Indo. And that's the relationship that has worked in Trinidad and Tobago. The challenge is that unless the COP is involved, it's hard to see a UNC government because people don't really believe that the UNC has the capacity to reach across to the Afros in the way that the COP can help. In a sense, this is what the civic part of the PPP civic was supposed to have been doing. It was supposed to be delivering the Afro-Guyanese vote. But I think that the PPP, the civic, is not really an entity that anyone seriously considers now as part of the deal. So, I mean, in short, you continue to have a problem because I don't see the politics of power sharing working because ultimately I don't believe that both parties are genuinely convinced that they are likely to lose everything, and as a result, they would want to consider power sharing. Having said that, though, I do think that it would be a good thing for Guyana. I look forward to the day when these racial issues, which have become old and tired, are put to rest. Because ultimately, everybody has the same desires and needs. All Guyanese looking for the same thing. Why do we have to go over this every year? And I mean, I guess I come from a place like Barbados where these issues are not there. But certainly, I think that, like Trinidad and Tobago, there's a majority of Guyanese that would really like to see the end of this. And if power sharing can fix it, fine. As to whether it will happen or not, I doubt it.
Quick wrap-up comments from Dr. Jeffrey, Mr. Campbell, and Mr. Ramkaren.
All right.
You have 30 seconds each.
Let me just say, because you asked what can be done to make this happen. You're right. everyone knows my position, and I've outlined it more or less clearly in the newspaper.